direct from the web, it's Billy Masters Live. And now, please welcome your host, Billy Masters.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to our first show since July 4th. I am, of course, Billy Masters. Welcome to Billy Masters Live. Today is, oh my God, what day is it? Somebody put it up for me. Tuesday, July 7th, 2020. Oh, speaking of 2020, over the weekend, we lost Hugh Downs, longtime host of 2020 with Barbara Walters, passed away like 94 or something. So God bless him. But somebody that I watched for years and years and years, Friday nights. Barbara Walters still alive. Not quite sure where she is, but that's another story. So we have such a great show for you today. We're continuing our singer-songwriters, but because everybody has been really enjoying it. But I want to tell you, I did not announce this week's shows in advance. And part of it is because I wasn't sure. Part of it was I was lazy. Part of it was I was on vacation. I was a little drunk. So, but Thursday, I can tell you, Thursday, we are going to have Shishi LaRue and Bruce Valanche. So it is our porn show. So you will not want to miss it. We will have some surprise porn stars dropping all sorts of things. So be sure to come by Thursday, 3 p.m. And we are still looking for a social media assistant. I could use somebody to help me speak sometimes. Because it's too much. I don't know how you crazy queens do it, because it's just exhausting. But you know what was not exhausting was my weekend away in Provincetown. So typically I do a anecdote from the past with some famous people, but I'm going to talk about Provincetown this week because I was very much on the fence. Do I go to Provincetown? Do I not go to Provincetown? I have a friend that has a seasonal place, although I call it the Filth to Go Beach House because when I'm there, it's mine. And it was totally immaculately cleaned and scrubbed and sanitized and lemon pledged, everything. We were very careful. We were all wearing masks and social distancing. He wouldn't let me out of his sight because he was very concerned that you let me out of your sight, I could be with 20 gay men and then come home and bring God knows what into the house, which I wouldn't have necessarily done, but I think he thinks I would. But anyway, so I want to show you a little bit just to sort of compare and contrast. So the big place where tea dance happens in Provincetown is the boat slip. Now, this is what the boat slip looked like last year on 4th of July weekend. It's a lot of people. Okay, here's what 4th of July this year looks like in Provincetown at the boat slip. That's it. You could only get drinks if you were on a chaise lounge or at a table. There was no walk-up service. And I don't know if you had to buy food, but the only places that can serve drinks are places that have food on the menu. You have no idea how many bars have like made up a sandwich menu and they're in back making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches just so they can stay open. And God bless them, because it was a little like a ghost town. So this is nighttime on the street in Provincetown in the past on 4th of July. That's the 4th of July. This is the exact same time, 9 p.m., my friend and I on the street. Nobody. That's me. And you'll notice the red and gray shirt. That's what I wore because I went down right after the show on Thursday. So there I was. But here's one thing that Provincetown did institute. And I don't know, I really should look this up. I don't know who's running this, but they have what they are called ambassadors, and they wear a sash, which I would take the job just for the sash. And the ambassadors walk around and they are handing out single-use, individually wrapped face masks, which I thought was just wonderful. Commercial Street, the main street in Provincetown, is a very narrow street. It's only one lane, and it gets packed. So the law is in Provincetown, even if nobody's on the street, you have to wear a mask 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. And then other times, obviously, when you're around people. So again, here is the street on 4th of July in the past. And here I am with the ambassador, who had a very full satchel. I had a full sack. He had a full satchel. So anyway, that was Provincetown. Now, to contrast that, and this has been all over the web, so like this is nothing new. I was very surprised to hear about Fire Island, because I said, oh, maybe everybody's being careful, blah, blah, blah. This is Fire Island this weekend, and this is a video from this weekend on the beach. Packed. I didn't see any masks in that, did you? Let's see. No masks. No, I don't see any masks. I don't see any masks there. So, I know I keep saying this to people, and I'm not, one of these militant people. Be careful, take care of yourselves, take care of others, because I don't remember who said it on this show, but when you see somebody walking towards you not wearing a mask, and you know that masks ultimately are to protect your droplets from spewing on other people. If somebody's walking towards you not wearing a mask, what they're subliminally saying is, I don't care about other people. So if you don't want people to think that about you, wear a mask. It's no big deal. Okay, that's it. That's my speech. So anyway, we are now on to the show, and I am very excited because both of these guys I am such a fan of. They are both openly gay singer-songwriters, both very similar in so many ways and so different. Last night, I had the most fun watching videos, reading up on both of them, and learning things I didn't know, and I am looking forward to learning even more that I don't know. Oh, look, he's trying on hats. Okay, yes, I see you, Ari. So I'm going to start with Ari Gold. I think a lot of you know Ari Gold, and he's recorded under different monikers over the years, but he's Ari Gold right now. Apparently he's still Sir Ari Gold. He's kind of disappeared for a while, and for a really good reason, and so I'm interested in talking to him about it. So please welcome Ari Gold. Hey, Ari.
Hello.
How are you? Oh, I like you.
Wait, do we like this one or do we like this one?
I think I like that
This one.
Oh no, I like that's my favorite.
Okay, we'll keep it.
But you can always do a costume change in the middle of the show. It's not a big deal.
I usually do about 4 or 5 at least.
Well, and you're usually taking things off. Now, for people who don't know,
taking things off is a costume change.
Well, that's true. That's true. And and why not let them see what's underneath the costume? I have found I was doing a lot of looking at all your videos and a lot of live videos. People have seen me hosting a lot of gay pride events. You have done way more gay pride events. You have shown up everywhere.
Well, I like to I used to call myself the gay pride poster boy.
Yeah.
And the guest that you're having on next, who you haven't announced yet.
Oh, yeah, but Eric Himan. Okay, I can say that.
I mean, we were both on the what I also used to call the gay chitlin circuit.
Yeah.
And it was me, and it was Eric, and it was Levi Christ.
So when Levi was on the show, he was on like 3 weeks ago, and he meant, and I would not have lumped the three of you together because you're all so different, but you're all going really after the same audience because the gay community is our community. And he said, oh, I was coming up through the ranks at the same time as Ari and Eric. And I did not realize that.
Yeah, musically, all three of us are very different.
Yeah.
But you know, I'm gonna toot my own horn, which
Toot it.
I've been accused of doing before.
That's okay. You're very limber. Go ahead.
But you know, the three of us were very we were pretty much the only ones. I mean, there was not really a whole lot of other artists that were willing to say they were openly gay, to be as bold as we were, to be writing songs with gay content in them. And so when you say you know, we're both openly gay artists, it's like we were some of the first, really, if not
really
first. I mean, yeah, they're I mean, if you trace it back, it's like you can go to the 70s and you could talk about Sylvester,
Sure.
who was a disco artist and also somewhat of a drag performer and a recording artist, and and he was just out there. But really, you know, that was also pre-AIDS, and so
That's true.
Post-AIDS, there was no one out there, and you know, we don't always get the credit that we deserve.
Oh, I agree. I think that, you know, when I was doing stand-up, when I started as a stand-up and hosting things, I happily had Bob Smith and Funny Gay Males, who would come right around the same time. But Bob Smith broke, being the first openly gay comic on The Tonight Show. And I thought that it would open the floodgates, and it really didn't. It was because I think a lot of people worry that if you're openly gay, you're automatically alienating the majority of your audience. Did you find that that was the case with you as a singer?
Yes. People thought that because I was so adamant about talking about and expressing the gay part of my identity and in my work, that that put me in a box, in a category.
Mm-hmm.
But and you know, and Eric and Levi were artists that I was really always very proud to be associated with, but they would put us in a category of like gay work that some of which had nothing, was so not, it was you know, parody, and it was you know, it was not really what we were doing as singer-songwriters. And I never felt like, you know, but I didn't feel like I should have been put in the box, because the music was pop and the music was mainstream.
Right.
Of course, also
and catchy. I mean, very hooky.
Thank you. Of course, you know, I also was not afraid, not only about the gayness, but of expressing sexuality.
Well, let's just look at this picture. That's you know, that's pushing boundaries, but it's also going to bring in your gay audience.
Mike Ruiz took that photograph.
Oh, sure. Well, Mike Ruiz has an eye for these things.
That was actually for like my, it was a remix retrospective called Play My Fucking Remix. And at that point, I had been doing what I do for so long that I'm like, you know what? You know, and I actually did from the beginning say, I'm doing this first and foremost for the LGBTQ community.
Mm-hmm.
But that didn't mean that I was trying to limit myself. It's just that,
Sure.
that we needed to see ourselves reflected back as we truly are.
Well, and I also think, like you said, people, when they hear something as if it means he's a gay singer-songwriter, that there's only one style of singer-songwriters. You did a lot of dance music, a lot of electronica, and also a lot of tongue-in-cheek. You had a lot of fun with your music. And there were also serious ballads. So again, I don't want to even put you in one box, but I think what people remember is the pushing the boundaries, the sexuality, and the dance music. Is that accurate?
Definitely, and that's great. You know, dance music is definitely a big part of my catalog, and I love dance music, and yeah, and I was young, and I was cute, and why not, you know, express my sexuality?
And there you are again.
That was actually it's a special photograph.
It's special to me.
Tell you, and Delicia Glam made my pants, but it was special because that whole shoot was taken before I started my treatment, which you had sort of brushed upon.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I want to do a photo shoot before I might, you know, lose all that nice muscle and stuff.
Well, now let me just ask before we get into the treatment. You really were, you know, I don't want to say were, but you packaged yourself in a way that really you were the product, if that makes sense. That it wasn't just the music, it wasn't a disembodied voice, it was the whole thing. It was the show, it was the body, it was the attitude, it was the music. And was that very conscious of you to really have it work all together in a way that the Madonnas and the Pinks and the Lady Gagas do?
Yeah, I mean, well, I was a student of Madonna, so yeah. Absolutely. I mean, you know, I was also always looking for ways to get the music out there because I never had a major record label or any corporate sponsorship behind me. Mm-hmm. So you know, I put together a 96-page coffee table book that came with the remix CD, and so there was a lot of I did a lot myself. You know, I mean, I worked with some great, you know, designers and collaborated with some great producers, but it was all really me making decisions and putting it together. Yeah.
Was it as calculated as we picture Madonna being? Was it really thought out every step of the way?
I mean, as each album came, I mean, you know, I didn't know. You know, I don't think Madonna's as calculated as we picture her to be.
Really?
Yeah, I don't. She says it too, and I believe her. I think certain things, one thing happened after the next, certain things happened, especially, you know, maybe now she might be calculated because she might want to, you know, recapture some of the stuff that she did in the past, and to continue to be relevant. Mm-hmm. But I think back in the day, she was just sort of going with the flow. And, you know, I mean, lucky for her, she had Warner Brothers Records behind her. So, right. You know, things really blew up. But, I mean, calculated, you know, I'm an artist. So, you know, it was by my second album was the first time I really put together like an album that had a sort of concept around it. And my third album, I did have the concept and wrote from there. And then I continued to do that. Sorry, that's my email.
That's okay, honey.
From my fourth and fifth and the last album, Soundtrack to Freedom, which I did under the moniker Gold Nation.
Right. And what made you do that? Why use the band name?
Well, I was a little sick of the solo artist thing because it's a lot to be a solo artist, and male solo artists have a hard time too, I think. But
in what way?
Well, if you look at what's out there in the pop world, I think people are a lot more easily drawn to female solo artists. I mean, who do we have male? Bruno Mars, Justin Timberlake, but there's a whole lot more in
the female.
Yeah, but I also wanted to make it more inclusive and expansive at the same time, and sort of include all the amazing performers that I bring up on stage with me, all the amazing designers, and even to include the audience, like you know, all of the people that are following my music and stuff. We are all one Gold Nation. You know, I think the concept of oneness is a good one to sort of meditate on.
Do you want to keep using the band name, or are you going to go back and forth? Do you have an idea?
It's back and forth, you know. I mean, I can't change my name. That's my name. That's also Ari Gold. That's also the name that I began my career doing, which is why, and I've been doing my career since I was 6 years old. So that's why when Entourage on HBO came out with a character with my name, it really threw me for a loop. Because I had arigold.com since the 90s, even before I had a computer. But and then the Imperial Court of New York at the Night of 1,000 Gowns, which is one of the longest charity or human rights organizations and charity events, longest standing, they knighted me.
So you became Sir.
I became Sir, and I really loved that because it was my community, and I wanted to show them how much I appreciated them acknowledging me. And then the last two projects I did were under Gold Nation. So Soundtrack to Freedom is the album, and then I did a remix album where I released a remix every month leading up to the 50th anniversary of Stonewall. And that came out last year, last Pride. Yes. And then my latest thing, I mean, you know, I haven't really gone anywhere, but my latest project was what I could do with my time in the current state, which is that, you know, which I had a podcast that I called A Kiki from the Cancer Ward, and I had like Laverne Cox, Coleman Domingo, RuPaul, Kevin Aviance, Peppermint from RuPaul's Drag Race, who all had come to visit me at the hospital, and I sort of just recorded our conversation that we had together, and it's a podcast that's available to listen to.
Great. Now let's talk about the cancer. So when did you find out you had cancer?
Talk about the cancer.
Let's talk about cancer. So cancer schmancer. We already had Fran on here, so why not?
I love it.
Great. So when did you find out what led up to the diagnosis?
Oh boy. Well, I was diagnosed about 8 years ago.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So I've been living with this for quite a while. There was I was having, you know, certain symptoms. I would pass out. I'd get off stage and pass out.
Wow.
Pass out at times, but I didn't really think much of it. But then I was trying to deal with another problem I was having, and that's when I got my blood work done, and they saw some issues with my blood work, and then I was diagnosed soon after that, and I've been dealing with it for 8 years, and this last year and a half has been one of the more intensive periods of time that I've been trying to beat it.
And what kind of cancer was this?
I have leukemia.
Okay. So it's a blood cancer. It's not a localized situation.
Right. It's in the marrow.
Right. And you said you had been in the hospital. What was the treatment at that point?
Well, I had a bone marrow transplant.
And what were the results? Were they positive?
At first they were positive. But I actually it takes about 3 months to where you're really not supposed. It's crazy because I basically was quarantining for 3 months, and then I came out of that quarantine. I received a Living Legend award from the Glam Awards, and I was able to stand on the stage and say I'm cancer free. And then very quickly after that, I was told that it came back, and very quickly after that, we were quarantining for COVID. And
Oh, so it is that recent.
yes.
And is there a plan? I mean, we're in this crazy time. I don't know really how much you're able to follow up, but is there a plan or a prognosis at this point?
Yeah, we're exploring different treatment options right now, and clinical trials and things of that sort.
Are you hopeful?
That's a good question. I am hopeful. I wouldn't be talking to you and doing this if I wasn't hopeful. Because the fact that I'm sitting here and talking to you, and that I care still to, talk to either my fans or possibly talk to people who haven't heard of me and might be interested in my music, that's hope. That's hope.
Is that what keeps you going?
You mean like my art and my music?
Yeah, I mean, because I know a lot of people who have had various diseases, and they usually have one thing that they can focus on to sort of get them through the hard times.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that. Yeah, I mean, like for example, when I was in the hospital, the fact that I was producing this podcast was something that gave me a purpose other than just trying to get well.
Sure.
I have been working on my musical memoir for a very long time, and that's something that has throughout the years given it's never seen the light of the light of day in the way that I imagine it, and it could possibly be a lot of different types of things. I have performed live versions of it as like a solo piece, but that's something that has kept me going. My friends, my family. I have just recently felt like I've been taking a step back from like even show business, or feeling like I want to be public, or I've sort of taken a little step into just being a little more private, and just taking care of myself. But I don't know. It's the days that I get to not have to go to the hospital, and just maybe go to the beach and just enjoy nature, weather. Like that's currently what just keeps me okay.
You admit, I don't know. I don't know if I can say this, but I'm going to. You had said to me before when we were booking the show that because of the illness, you weren't able to sing. Is that, or that you didn't have the strength? I think it was. Was that it?
No, like a week ago, for about 2 weeks, I'd lost my voice. I didn't know why. You can still hear it.
Yeah, a little rasp.
A little, yeah. So I can still sing, and I can sing now, but I did lose my voice for like 2 weeks, and so.
Was it related to this, or was that just?
I have no idea. I have no idea. I mean, I know that since the transplant, it weakens everything.
Of course.
I did a lot of chemo, and you know, so nothing is quite the same. I'm still trying to build back up as best as I can.
For somebody who is so physical and really energetic and worked out and everything, is that part of the recuperation? Are you able to kind of focus on getting back some of that energy to do the things you loved?
I mean, you know, when I was on the road to recovery, and I thought had uh, I had cured, or I was in remission, and I was, you know, working out more, and then and then um, and then I found out that it came back, and that sort of set me back a little bit, and then COVID happened when the gyms closed.
Right.
So, but you know, it's also been, and this is very personal and vulnerable, but I'll share with you.
Please.
It's been you know, a process of a constant and continual and daily process of valuing myself based on just the fact that I mean, Oprah says, you know, you are worthy because you were born, you know, not because you know, you have muscles, and not because you have a certain amount of followers, or even you know, I've been performing since I was 6 years old. So much of my identity is and my sense of self is tied into performing, and so to even put that down in a way, you know, and to really come to learning how to value myself without any of the outside things that I used to rely on. That's been daily lessons, you know. That's been quite a process.
I would bet that doing the podcast and doing anything creative then has to fill a void, because you need. It seems like you're somebody like me, and like so many of us during the quarantine, have needed an outlet to either connect with people or to just express ourselves.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that can we even value ourselves when we're not feeling productive artistically? It's like I've gone there like that.
Wow.
You know, and that's something that I never imagined, because I was my whole life, you know, I'm an artist. I've identified as myself as an artist. I started writing. I had my first demo when I was 12. You know, so, and it's funny because, like, back in the day, you know, when I first started as an adult in the business, you know, it's just a funny thing, because I always say that of any uh, community or a group of people, there's no community of people who think they're supposed to be pop stars than gay men.
That's probably true.
So when I was, you know, coming up, and I was like, yeah, I'm a recording artist, and I'm, you know, a pop singer, and, you know, a lot of people would be like, oh, okay, yeah, and then years later, they would come up to me and they would be like, you really are, you know, a pop star, pop singer, and you know, so what am I saying? I have to bring it. I'm trying to bring it around.
That you've always identified with that. You've based your value in who you are as an artist, and now you have to be a person.
Yeah, and I was surprised at their reaction, because for me it was a real thing. Like I said, I did a demo when I was 12, and I'm like, I ain't playing. Like, this is real, and it was real, and now to even like divorce myself from that. I mean, okay, now I'm gonna tell you, like, you know, my therapist, you know, like, has really brought to light the ways in which I have been, I hope this doesn't sound highfalutin but a healer in certain ways, or or Oprah says I'm going to quote Oprah again. At our best, we're all teachers.
Mhm.
And so teaching and healing, I think, is at the even more core than being an artist. And so lately it's been a lesson in getting to the core. I don't even have to be productive. I don't even have to be an artist, and right now. So that's I hope that makes sense to you.
Oh, it does. And I'm going to actually put a pin in it right there, because I think the what motivates us and what is our identity as people and as artists is something we can talk to Eric about when we have all of us together. So, Ari, first, I can't believe that you've gone as far as you have with me. I so appreciate it, and I think it's very, very brave and very riveting. And I hope people who are watching, it's really you just showed me a completely different side of you, and I watched hours of videos last night. So but I'm going to put you backstage briefly, and I'm going to talk to Eric for a bit, if that's okay.
Don't put me in a box.
Well, I'm putting you you're in a box on my screen. I will see you in a few minutes. Thank you, Ari. Well, now we're going to just lighten things up. Our next guest is, as we talked about a little earlier, another openly gay singer-songwriter, completely different route in the business, completely different music, but still one of our own, and maybe with some similar aspects to his story, maybe not. We'll see. Welcome, Eric Himan. Hey, Eric.
How's it going?
Eric, are you going to lighten things up for me just a little bit?
I don't know. I'm gonna play with my hair, like as I'm.
He's still playing. See, again, we went from the depth of Ari in his soul, and you and I, Eric and I were backstage before the show started, and we're both trying to find our light and fix our hair. And really, does it matter?
Well, COVID times, no, none of that really matters whatsoever.
Where are you? Where are you quarantining?
Oh, I'm quarantining in my house in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma.
Okay, so I think I knew you were home, and people should know that that Eric has been doing videos at least once a week, if not more, on his Facebook page. Is that the only place they are, Eric?
Yeah, an Instagram Live.
Okay, and they have been so entertaining. And what I love about you, and I didn't know this side of you till the pandemic, was that, you'll turn the thing on and you'll say, I don't know how this is going to be. What do you people want to hear? And then sometimes you'll ramble while you're waiting for people to come on. And then you'll start a song and say, oh, that was the wrong key. This is a little high. And you're just so real and so vulnerable. And have you always been that way? Because I think of you as such a cool, laid back kind of guy. And which part is the real you? Or is it all?
Well, I guess it's all me, but like I feel that you can't hide. For me, I can't hide on this. Like on camera, when I'm doing Facebook Lives, it's hard because you're not really getting. Like I'm lucky I get to talk to you and I hear your voice, but when you do Facebook Lives, it's like I'm not getting anything other than like a stream of people talking. So,
and it's about a half hour, half a minute delayed from what you just said. Yeah. So it's very difficult.
And it's also distracting because even when I'm sitting there playing a song, I'm like playing it, but then I'm like reading and I'm trying to play the words and I get distracted.
Well, don't do that. Don't read while you're singing.
I can't help it. Like,
that would be like me having sex with you. That would be like me having sex with you, but like reading a book over your shoulder. I mean, how rude.
Or like emojis going by.
Yeah, and or just like, or watching TV.
Emojis.
Exactly. And I will say, I will say that this has been a learning process for so many of us. I started through the pandemic, and even though I've been on TV a lot, I've been on radio a lot, I've been on stage a lot, but this is a whole different ball game. and talking and sort of looking into the camera, but not looking at you, which I want to do. It's a whole skill set that I'm developing. I'm not sure how good it is because I really, I'm so used to looking people in the eye. When you're on a set, you're looking at the interviewer, and when you're on stage, you're looking at your audience. And right now, you're just kind of performing into the void.
Exactly, and some of it feels like, okay, I get what it is, and I understand the setup. But then the other half of it is, I struggle with it because it's not live. I mean, it's like it feels live, but it's not live, and there's nothing coming back. And I think as artists, we're all trying to, the joy of music sometimes is the instantaneous look in someone's eyes, or like, you're doing comedy and you get to hear that laughter, and it's that back and forth, like that the audience is a piece of the whole puzzle.
Yeah.
And the show is not you. The show is like the audience plays a part in that.
Yeah. And the energy, again, when you're on stage live, most people watching this probably haven't been in this situation, but it does, when people say, if you're on Broadway, you're doing the same play every night. You never are, because everything is different. And you and I were talking before we went live that on stage, if I'm telling a story that's not working with the audience, I can shift and go on to something else in a second. You can read your audience as well. But this way, you just have to trust who you are.
You do, and I think, as Ari said, you just rely on, your creativity and who you are. I mean, it was beautiful watching you two talk earlier, and you're saying, like, where do you get your inspiration, and how do you continue on with all these different changes? And I think, based on what you and Ari were talking about, it's just being you, and it is who you are. It's your personality. I know we identify ourselves based on whether we're playing something or singing something or dancing in something or doing something.
Right.
But all of that is an extension of our personality and who we are. Like, that is that's the root, and everything is like splitting off of that. So when we all feel like that, I mean, of course, I'm not going through what Ari's going through, and just hearing him talk so openly was just very inspiring, and I admire him a ton. It's also COVID times. Everything is taking away. I have a job where I work for a park, and I do all the events, and I've been doing it for 3 years. I was playing a little bit of music. All my dreams came true of being able to play and tour with all the people that I wanted to. Ani DeFranco, and I got to play with Patty Griffin and Leon Russell before he passed away. I was touring around opening for him.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
And then, like, after all of them happened, it was like just a quiet, okay, now I'm back at the bar in the corner. So it was like, it's like somebody drove me around a really awesome, fancy neighborhood and dropped me right back off at home.
Well, but
now it's like, oh, okay.
But doesn't it, as Ari was saying, doesn't it sort of then strip everything away, and you have to realize, how do you identify yourself?
Yeah, it really is. I mean, and as I'm saying, with COVID times, I had this job, but like now I'm furloughed since May. So that's like, all right, well, now I'm in my house, and then, I'll go back to what I know how to do. I'll go and play shows. Oh, I can't play shows because you can't play anywhere.
Right.
And then I'm thinking, all right, well, I'll tour, but I can't do that either. And like, all right, well, now I'll just sit online and play a bunch of music. Well, not everybody, there's only so many times you can do that, where people feel this connection. And then I decided to write a song and do a music video, and I just put that out last week. I mean, it's really just trying to figure out, as it's happening in real time, what can you do? Where do you go? And it's different for everybody.
And it seems to me that your music has been much more of what people consider the traditional singer-songwriter route. It's been more personal. It's been more acoustic. It has been stripped down. I mean, is that an accurate way to describe what you do? You do a lot of different styles.
No, I mean, that's definitely accurate. I think I've also like screwed myself in a way of like people telling me what I was. And because I'm holding a guitar, they're like, oh, you're folky. Oh, you're this. Like, and then what I realized later on in my career was I'm just writing, like Ari said, I'm writing pop songs. They just happen to be displayed with this sentiment. And I really had to wrap my brain around, like, as I was, up for things like The Voice or other things where people are constantly telling you, oh, you're this, oh, you're this, or like being a gay artist. And you're like, oh, you're a gay artist. Oh, you're a gay artist. You're a gay artist. And it's like everyone was trying to categorize you. It's funny now that like that has completely gone away. Like no one described you as a gay artist anymore.
Yeah.
But there was like a time 10 years ago where like, oh, you're gay, you're a gay artist. And that meant like all my music was gay. Only gay people would get it. The music's gay just like you're gay. And then I was trying to argue that point of like, well, my music's not gay, I'm gay. And then that seemed a little like I was taking steps backwards. And it wasn't, and then I was writing more politically gay songs because I felt like that's where I felt I could express being gay and the song be that narrative without it being like, oh, you're just, get with the other gay kids. You're, you know what I mean? And everyone was trying to classify us. And as Ari was saying, there was me, there was Levi, there was Christopher Dahlman, there was Gregory Douglas. Like we were all these guys that were all doing a very different kind of thing, all under the same gay umbrella. And people didn't know what to do with us. We're playing Pride and they're like, for me, they would see me and go like, "Oh, you have an acoustic guitar? You're with the lesbians,
right?"
Or they're looking at you and they're like, "Well, you're not drag, so and you're not that poppy, so you're not with the drag queens. Get over there with the lesbians." And the lesbians are like, "You're not a lesbian,
right?"
So a lot of the music and what I drew myself towards was Ani DeFranco and Indigo Girls. And living out my dreams of trying to
the lesbians
be close to those artists. Yeah, because I felt like that's where I fit. And it was safe because I also wasn't a lesbian. Like there was no drama. I was never part of anybody's dating
competition,
circle.
sure.
I was never competition. I was like, oh, there's Eric.
Well, that's funny because, as I said to Ari, Levi had mentioned the two of you, and I'm looking at three people who do three completely different genres of music. And there's some crossover, obviously, but one went to Broadway. One was doing more stripped down acoustic. I don't want to say folky because now you've made me feel like I shouldn't, but lesbian-y singing. Well, and sort of there was a precedent because you also had like Rufus Wainwright, for instance, was kind of in Rufus, that category for a while, but has also done lots of different things. Wrote an opera, for God's sakes. So,
right. Like they were all different. One of my favorite moments though, of all of us is like there was a bunch of us, and I don't know if Ari is going to remember this, but we were all in San Francisco. We're all in Sacramento. And I'm trying to remember why. I think maybe we're all Pride. There was something happening. And it was like I was there and Levi was there. And we were both playing at this place called the Headhunters. And Ari was there and Billy Porter was there. Like everybody was there. And I don't know what brought us all into that moment together, but I really love that moment. There's a picture of all of us together I have to go find. But we were all kind of in the same spot before Levi went to Broadway and everybody went in their own different directions. But I mean, that felt like the most community-oriented moment of a lot of things, because New York, I remember Ari, and we can talk about this when he comes back, but I remember Ari, seeing him Barracuda in New York City and that whole group of New York City people and Adam Joseph and there was a crew of people doing that. And then there was a crew of people in LA, where Levi was and Emerson was and Blake, was and Dell. And there were these really odd pockets of things. And I was always either in Pittsburgh or Oklahoma. And I would just kind of bounce
shuttle
into these
between
things.
them. Right.
Yeah. Being smack dab between New York and LA and knowing both groups of people and just seeing how it all kind of got put together. That was the real fun moment of being part of a community. I mean, it's still there, but it's not the same as it once was.
No, I think that it's fragmented. And in the positive side of that is there was a time when, as you said, all gay artists were lumped together. I would judge gay films. And I have to say, for film festivals, maybe 15 years ago, they were the most god-awful films I've ever seen in my life. And they would just say, you've got to, get behind and promote them because we need more gay cinema. And I'm like, but gay doesn't equal good. Good equals good. And my standards weren't going to go down just because, it's a gay artist. You have to judge these people on their art. And I think now that the gay community has been so accepted and is in the mainstream, now you're just in the ocean with all of the singer-songwriters. I don't know if being a gay singer-songwriter is a niche anymore.
No, it's not. But Ari said it best, is like, there's not that many men in that arena that do what
of any kind. Right. That's
true. And they're out. But I mean, someone mentioned Sam Smith. I saw that also. But
I saw it too. Yeah.
But yeah, there's not a lot of us, and sometimes it feels like there's not a lot of opportunity for us, like even now, like we're all a little bit older and we've been in part of the community. It's very hard to get that kind of press and that representation that maybe 10 years ago or 15 years ago was a little bit easier because it was newer. There weren't a lot of people who were out doing this, and now major labels and of course corporations have grasped onto pride and grasped onto, that there is money, and that we've progressively done better as a community to get rights and visibility to where even the nation is a little more on our side than they were, 15 years ago.
Oh, absolutely. And, but I also think with that also means that the artists have to elevate their game because they're not the best gay artists. Where are you in the mainstream or compared to any artist?
Yeah, I mean, and it's hard because for me, I just never knew where I sat in that. Like, I didn't know if I was a really good gay artist or not gay enough, or that's why I felt like I was always trying to merge more with women, with women singer-songwriters, because I felt like that's where my style seemed to fit. I love Melissa Etheridge and Bonnie Raitt and Tracy Chapman, and like, those are a lot of my influences, because when I was starting out, there weren't a lot of men that were out in that way, and their music didn't speak to me as much as, that's another interesting part about being out men and men singers, is that a lot of our community, women singers are a lot more heralded, and that's not a bad thing. Believe me, I'm heralding. Like, you look at traditional ones that were like Madonna and Cher, and then you look now and it's like Ariana Grande and Katy Perry, and
and there's not a lot of guys out there.
No, especially in that. I will say Sam Smith, of course, is filling that void, and as he's as they are more non-binary, I like to see where that goes for them. Sure. But for me, it's like you hit a point where you're like, well, I'm still playing I'm not playing gay bars. I'm not playing gay establishments all the time. I'm playing every kind of establishment. So my career is really, I wasn't opening for Leon Russell touring around as a gay artist.
Which is amazing, right? You were just a great artist.
I was just an artist,
and nobody really cared about the rest of it.
No, and he didn't really say anything to me about it. And Patty Griffin and Lake Street Dive and like all these other bands that I've had opportunities with, it wasn't based on my sexuality. Even Ani, I met Ani at 38 Songwriters Festival in Florida, and just had an awesome experience, getting to talk to her. So I don't know. And then I'm going on the road with her. Like, it wasn't, about my husband or about being gay, but I did take what she had done in that community and her messages. Like, I felt like there was an overlapping element where I felt, oh, this is somebody who has songs that talk about being, you know, LGBT, but it not necessarily identified as an LGBT only artist, you know?
Right. Well, I think that there, for women in particular, I think they can come together, whether they're gay or straight, and they can sort of have the common denominator being the music and the style of singing and the style of audience. Whereas, as you said, you know, there could be a Lilith fair for women. There couldn't be a Lilith fair for men because it would be a pretty small fair.
It would be a very small, it would be a small, I feel like attended fair, but there's so many artists that it would just as many on the bill. Like there's a lot of them out there
that
and everybody's
we
trying to
discover.
Albert, you know, everybody has their own different, you know, the gay male audience is divided into a lot of different sectors. So,
well, I've had comedians. I've had comedians on here. We've talked about this, and you know, again, I'm sorry, gay men, to sort of put you down in this regard, but gay women will support gay women artists or any women artists. Gay men do not. By and large, I go to Provincetown. A gay male comedian is not going to bring in the gay men because they're getting ready to go dancing at an underwear party. The women will go to the. Excuse me?
Sex appeal is a piece of that.
Right. Well, true. And you know, look at somebody like Steve Grand, who, you know, another one who is a singer-songwriter. But if you ask 90 gay men who know him, they couldn't name a song, but they could tell you what underwear he was wearing in a photo shoot. So
yeah, and for Steve, I guess that works, and you know, and he's probably worked a lot of his body, but it's very. That was always the big struggle when it came to gay media is like, I remember so many photographers would be like, all right, you know, take off your shirt. And I just was like, no, I'm not going to take off my shirt. And then it would be like, oh, well, I don't know how I'm going to work with this. You know, there were moments like that constantly where it's like, all right, you know, like, let me touch you or like, there were there were a lot of moments where I just shielded myself and running toward my lesbian friends because I felt like being that element of gay, or what people were looking for in that way, I just wasn't.
Well, like, can I tell you, last night I had a devil of a time trying to find a shirtless picture of you, and I couldn't find one. So, because I looked for Ari, and I said, "Oh, look, maybe there are pictures of Eric too." This was the picture I found, and that was as risque as it got.
Yeah, because it wasn't.
That's you. That is who you are.
Yeah, I'm extremely uncomfortable in trying to present myself in that way. Like it works for other people and they're very comfortable, and I'm jealous of that.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
But I didn't feel like I was doing something confidently vulnerable, I guess you could say. It always felt like way too vulnerable.
Well, and I also think that, again, you and I had talked beforehand about authenticity. If it's not who you are, even if you look good, you're going to come off awkward. It's not going to read as real. So I think you have to stick to who you are. And it sounds like at least you know who you are.
I feel like I know who I am. And I also am aware that when you give people something that's inauthentic, the worst thing is if people want it and it catches on. Can you imagine if I was like, all right, I'll take a bunch of pictures with my shirt off, and then I do, and then all of a sudden that's where some kind of fame or viral thing comes, and now here I am expected to do this so much. Like, I think that would have like sent me down a very bad road.
Now I haven't spoken to Steve Grand about this, but he played Provincetown for 2 summers in a t-shirt and jeans. And I cannot tell you how many people said to me afterwards, well, why didn't he take anything off? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, it's not a strip show. It's a concert.
Yeah.
So I totally
things like that. I mean, you just don't know what people are going to gravitate towards or expect. And for me, I just go back, as I was telling you, I go back to thinking about the people who I respect, you know, and the artists that I looked up to, and, you know, Tracy and Ani and all these people. And that's where I was like, all right, I'm just going to do myself based on what I feel like people who I respect would respect.
Right.
And that's how I lived my life.
No, and obviously, because everything I've seen you do comes off as, oh, that's Eric, because it's so authentic to you. It never feels put upon.
It's hard to stay that route, though. I mean, there is that temptation of like, well, I'm not getting enough TikTok likes. Oh, I'm not getting enough Facebook. Oh, I'm not getting, like, there's always that temptation to do what you feel looks like it's working, right? And having to remind yourself, you know, that that's them, and it comes off so well because that's them. That's not you. You know, what comes off naturally to Ari, and he's just amazing at, might not work for me.
Right. And I told you beforehand, it's the same with this show. I see the numbers, I see who's watching live, I see replays, and I'm like, oh, this type of guest got huge response. I should do more of that. But, you know, I try to gravitate to people that I'm genuinely interested in, that I can have a conversation with and maybe learn something about. So
but you can also do like extend yourself though into uncomfortable areas without being completely uncomfortable. Like, I started doing stand-up comedy only because I feel like stand-up comedy, like you do, like I felt like there was an element of stand-up comedy in what I already did, that it didn't seem like such a jump to try to do something different. You can be authentic, but I feel like there is that element where you still have to keep challenging yourself.
Oh, yeah. And I will tell you, there was one guest in particular, I'm not going to say who, that at the end of the interview, I really feel like I had let him down, because I felt like, oh, I never quite got him. You know, most people you can get. And, but what it did was it made me think, oh, one of these days I'm going to have him back again, and I'm going to try, because you want to figure it out. So,
yeah.
But you got, over the last couple of weeks, a lot of attention, a lot of press for a song you wrote. So tell us about the song.
So I wrote a song called Local Gay Bookstore. And it was based on Pride's not happening this year. And hearing so many people be like, well, I guess we can't really celebrate being gay. Like, I guess gay is done for this year. And I thought to myself, there were these places, and very few still exist, but like there were tons of places where 365 days out of the year, it was Pride, you know. And I remember playing a lot of these bookstores, and I remember feeling this sense of like excitement and nervousness and wonderment and like community, and that I was who I was as a gay male, connected to something bigger than just me dealing with this alone. There were books about being gay and trans and lesbian and bi, and like there were artists, you know, that were only featured in stores like that you wouldn't find on, because there was no iTunes, you know. There wasn't all this accessibility. So when we went to a gay bookstore, you know, in the 90s, or let alone the 80s, like you were in something extremely unique, and you were seeing artists that you wouldn't find other places. And my music ended up in a lot of them, you know, when I was coming out, you know, as an artist. So, I mean, I really owed this debt of respect, and to have a lot of them not be around anymore, I wanted to pay homage to who they, you know, what these stores represented to me. And it's sad that, like, you know, younger audiences don't really have other versions of it, like Netflix, but they don't have it in the way that you would stand in one spot and look around and be completely surrounded by it.
And discover.
That was discover artists, and discover kind of who you were while you were figuring out who they were.
And this song exploded. How did it explode? Did you just release it and just people picked it up? What happened?
I just released it and like sent it out to a bunch of people and said, hey, I think people understood and had their own version of what they remembered LGBT bookstores to be, and I wanted to make sure it was authentic. I wanted to make sure I remembered it correctly. I did some research, so I wasn't just saying my own perspective. Like, I'm talking about bookstores that were in Atlanta and, outwards up in Milwaukee and Lobos, and the more I dove into it, people wanted to say to me, hey, I remember a different light in San Francisco. This is the first gay bookstore I went to. I'm not talking necessarily about me and my perspective as much as I'm talking about these places that, some still exist, like Giovanni's Room in Philadelphia, and Unabridged in Chicago. Like, people have their own memory of these places that are very near dear to them. So me just bringing up the conversation feels, connected.
So since you've got the guitar there, I'm thinking rather than show a clip from the video, why don't you sing the song? You feel up to it?
All right, I'll sing the song.
All right, good. Go ahead. Eric Himan, local gay bookstore.
Can you hear it all right?
Yep, you sound great.
Make sure I got my guitar picked. No matter what you were looking for, there was always the local gay bookstore. For magazines, CDs, DVDs, and more, you were safe and placed to shelter any storm. From the jingle of the door to the cash register ding, there was a narrative, and we were listening. And outside, picket signs would scream with hate, but inside there was a daily pride parade. No matter what you were looking for, there was always the local gay bookstore. Whether you were gay, bi, straight, trans, or queer, there would always be a friend to accept you here. From the jingle of the door to the cash register ding, there was a narrative, and we were listening. From Mop and Baldwin, Burroughs, Walker to Hughes, you could find similar faces in the pages that you view. No matter what you were looking for, there was always the local gay bookstore. Hey! From Howard's in Milwaukee down to Alright in the Atlanta Sun, there was Lambda Rising in DC, and P-Town had one. We went to a different line in San Francisco. Dallas and Houston's Lobos had style, and you could hear any LGBT singer playing at the roast attached to Oscar Wilde's. We still have a few in our midst, like Giovanni's Room in Philly, and one of the biggest ones around was Out Loud in Nashville City. Because behind these walls, you could be your own superstar. Didn't matter if you were out and proud or coming to terms with who you are. And though many of these are closed, their spirit carries on the fun, and we owe a debt of gratitude to those who owned and operated each one. No matter what you were looking for, there was always the local gay bookstore. There you go.
Oh, fabulous.
Thanks.
Thank you, Eric.
Tiny little gay bookstore to music video, because we did a little music video, and he made this little gay bookstore.
Oh,
right here.
Look how cute. Hold on, wait, I'm going to make you bigger so people can see it. Okay,
So
go ahead.
he made this little gay bookstore. So we called it Out of Print.
I love it.
He made this little book nook thing, and you can see inside. And then when you open it up, there's like little versions of as you can see, there's
magazine. Yeah.
And then little versions of Alice Walker and Augustine Burroughs. And
wow.
Book, and you can see Out in the Advocate inside, and Philadelphia Gay News. So he's pretty amazing. Ryan Nichols, he made this, and it's just the music video that we put together for it, I was like, just don't shoot me, just get the bookstore. So he did really good on that.
Oh, see, you got the best fans. Yeah, I got good fans too. Thank you to my fans. To everyone watching, thank you. I'm gonna bring Ari in. Hold on, let's see. Where do I get him? There he is. Hey, Ari.
Hi.
Hey.
So,
Oh my God, that song. I'm a little verklempt from that song.
do you know?
So nostalgic.
We've been getting comments. Wes Haggard said, "Love local gay bookstore."
West Albuquerque. Yeah, I know.
I know. I didn't. My thing was on private chat, and now I was able to click on the live comments. I didn't know that was happening before. So.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Someone-
And look, so Wes also posted Ari was elevating. Look, Ari, you're elevating. Brian Mullen says Eric is our gay Billy Joel.
Billy Joel.
He's also the gay Richard Gere.
Yes, and gay Richard Marx as well. Rocky Duran says, Ari, thanks for sharing your story here. Be strong and keep fighting, keep on singing.
Thank you so much,
Rocky. So many. I mean, there's so many comments, but I just, I'm giving a little bit of equal time. I want to show a little bit of a video of Ari that I enjoy. Because I'm a shallow bitch. And it's also one of my favorite songs. I really love this song. So just take a look at this video. There are so many cameos.
That's awesome.
I mean,
cameos,
great cameos. So Michael Musto, I saw Michael Lucas.
Mm-hmm.
And you're playing a million roles as well. You're one of the drag contestants.
The secret, you have to watch till the end of
it's only a 1 hour.
I love it. I love that people don't realize just how much work. Now think about all of what he just did, and think about how there's record labels pay so much money to have somebody do that, to put all of that together and then be in it. Ask all those people to be in it. Like, people realize just how much work an independent artist like that has to put in.
Running down the street naked.
That was fun.
Kind of naked. Where you were, I don't believe you.
From RuPaul's Drag Race, but she was playing. It was actually before she was on Drag Race, and she was playing Jew Paul.
Right.
You call her Juru. And the best cameo in there is my mother. Actually,
is that your mother sipping the tea?
Like that?
Oh, looking shocked. Oh God. See, I was going to ask you. Okay. I think it's such a creative video, and again, it's so tongue-in-cheek, and it's so funny and subversive in a little way. Do you know what I mean?
Subversive. I always try to be a little subversive.
So we were talking earlier, Ari and I were talking earlier about inspiration and identity, and so I'm curious for the both of you, how has that changed over the years as success has come on you or growth has come on you? Ari, we kind of talked about it earlier in terms of the illness sort of making you look at things differently, but had you evolved as an artist in terms of, your connection to your art?
Have I evolved? I would like to think so.
Well, it's not so much evolved, but your point of view, your perspective on it, has that changed?
Well, I was listening to you guys' conversation, which I really enjoyed, and was like, oh, I want to interject here, I want to interject there. But it was great. It was a great conversation. The one thing I wanted to get, it was just interesting because even though as much as the gay artist thing at that time, as Eric was describing, what did put us all in boxes, and there was so many times, I'm sure Eric can tell you stories, and as I can tell you stories where opportunities for certain mainstream things, or even opportunities for certain gay things where, I was told I was too gay, right? But but I tried to get gayer and gayer and gayer. That was my goal. How I evolved. I wanted my music to be gayer than it ever was before. I wanted to, because, you know, like so many of us, especially those of us during that time, we grew up with so much shame, and I wanted to continue to, explode the shame. And you know, I quoted Oprah, who said, at our best, we're all teachers. And then also, she has said that we often teach the lesson we need to learn most for ourselves. That we teach the lesson we need most for ourselves. And that was a lot of what I was doing, is I was really like trying to continue to let go of my own shame. And so I just wanted to always be gayer and gayer and gayer.
That's awesome.
I love the gay bookstore thing, because, you know, I once I came out, I had such a love and affinity. I got to love gay culture, you know, and I got to, yeah, I just, you know, I loved the idea of being gay, and the ideal of community that made, we were fragmented, but, you know, to hold on to some kind of ideal of community.
Well, especially like when before you come out, you know, and you're seeing it everywhere. Because I mean, I'm of a generation where there was a lot of very out gay moments before I was around, you know, growing up. So you look at those, and when you start to come to your own process, it's interesting when you think, oh, well, these symbols, which you used to kind of be afraid of because you didn't know what they were or where you fit into it, somehow everyone learns to embrace. You know, I'm playing prides now. It's funny, like 20 years ago, which, you know, 15 years ago when I started playing prides, to playing them last year in Pittsburgh, I couldn't believe how much rainbow, how I was one of the older people there. Everyone was so much younger than me. And to watch all that change, I mean, it's exciting, but it's also like, I don't want us to forget, you know, the bookstores and our history, and that these help so many people.
Good, Ari. And
one big aha moment I had somewhere along the line, in my growth in my career was, you know, when me and Eric were coming up, you know, I don't think I understood the depth of what the community had just gone through with AIDS.
Right.
And so that, I think, made a huge impact on how we were received as artists. So
yeah, and I also think that, you know, age has something to do with it in terms of being a performer who's younger versus a performer who is older, and how you're received by the audience. Because I was thinking back, one of the first prides I had hosted, no, it wasn't the first. It was like the third, but it was right at the beginning. I had hosted Stonewall 25 in New York on the pier, and I was just starting out, but I was, you know, how old was I? 25. So I was a young kid, and audience responded to me very differently at 25 than they do at 50.
Sure.
Because, you know, part of it is I have friends that we came through the club world. So many of us performed in every gay bar in town, every straight bar in town. And then you graduate towards that. And it seems like a lot of the clubs and a lot of the pride festivals have kind of left the people who are 50 behind, that it's really the domain of youth. And I love when I go to a pride festival and I see older people, younger people, straight people, gay people. That's what we should be embracing, is the diversity.
Well, 15 years ago, I mean, I was the youngest, you know, like you would go and there were tables and everybody was so much older than me. So to see that shift is interesting. I mean, Ari, I don't know about New York, but I mean, a lot of these different cities that we were playing at different times, because you're right, there was this circuit of pride male performers because there weren't a lot of us.
Right.
So I remember getting a phone call every once in a while that was like, "We don't have any men. We have drag queens, we have lesbians, but like we have no men, like
Right.
no male fronted,
Right. We have to acknowledge and mention RuPaul's Drag Race because it really changed everything. And I've always been a fan of drag. I was like writing about drag for the Gay Rag in New York, and I'm a huge fan of drag, and I'm a huge fan of RuPaul's Drag Race. And they needed to be elevated in the way that they are now, so that they can make more than $150 at a gay bar,
or a couple of drink tickets.
For a couple of drink tickets. But we still need cisgendered or non-binary
representation.
Yeah.
Because we still need the diversity.
Yeah, I think so many straight people have embraced RuPaul's Drag Race and think that's the gay community because that's the narrow view they have seen, or they've seen Will and Grace. That's it. Will and Grace and RuPaul.
Right. Yeah. And Eric mentioned Sam Smith, and then just to add to that, as far as mainstream cisgendered, well, Sam actually does identify as non-binary, but I guess as far as mainstream non-drag LGBTQ performers, it's just a language game, really. But
I know it really is.
As far as that, it's Sam Smith, it's Troye Sivan.
Yeah.
Who else?
Last week I had Billy Gilman on the show, and what was interesting about talking to Billy Gilman, being younger, is that he was a kid who was a star primarily, in the country vein, and basically had to come as a new person and reintroduce himself to people. And I asked him, who were his role models, and all of his role models were straight people who had reinvented themselves, because I don't think there is a very clear path for that in the gay community. Certainly age.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying, like, for the country music scene and then the Christian
and
music.
Of course, we should figure
like for these niches that were Christian based, for like Jennifer Knapp and a bunch of other LGBT artists that like came out of that, who struggled because they lost their audience and then had to redo it again.
Yeah.
Like to, Ty, who I love, and Billy, like the country music also had they share that same thing where like there's a religious element to it,
right?
That somehow makes people feel like, all right, you're not an artist in this bubble anymore to me. You got to go to the gays.
I was interested though when Billy said to me he did not lose, he didn't lose a lot of his fan base, but there was a quote, and I didn't get to ask him this, but the headline said, "I didn't leave country music left me." And I think that's a very telling statement.
Look at the Dixie Chicks,
Yeah. Well, the chicks, apparently.
The chicks, yeah.
Oh, I'm so tired of all of it. What about political correctness, Ari? Because you've pushed the button so many times. Have you been shut down because you are not always politically correct? I say to the Hebe cover boy.
Hebe magazine?
Yes, weren't you on the cover of Hebe?
Well, that's not my magazine. So
no, but you were on the cover. You were a cover boy.
I can't take that on.
You can't take credit for all of them now. But I don't think you can even use the word Hebe today. I think people would be very upset with the magazine.
Right. No, it's a great question. It's a constantly evolving question. I mean, I come from a scene and a culture and a community in New York that was sort of ardently not politically correct. It's like but being not politically correct does not, it's like I love Lady Bunny, like most offensive, but at the same time she's incredibly politically engaged and has like very intelligent political opinions.
And authentic.
Some I agree with, some I don't. Very authentic to her. It's been a process. You know, I sort of like, on one of my albums, I used the word tranny, and I was reprimanded for that.
By whom?
By a transgender.
Oh, so it was. All right.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, really, I used it because it was a much better rhyme than transgender. But and you know, and I have collaborated with the trans community from since my very first video. But I try, you know, now I try to be as mindful and as respectful, especially, you know, when I'm reminded that we're talking, you know, a part of our portion of our community that has the most violence done to them, and you know, there are murders and the most of that. So who am I to really like try to hold on to a word? But I also, you know, I think that we are all. I mean, it starts with language. Language is important. We should all have the right to describe who we are with our own language, and people, you know, should respect how each person wants to be acknowledged and described. But it doesn't, you know, stop with language. I mean, language is only one part, you know, and no one owns words. You know, nobody owns language.
Yeah, I think as somebody who's a columnist, I have found that the written word sometimes doesn't always express intent. And I think that people will get hung up on a definition rather than either hearing the intent or the meaning behind the expression.
Yeah.
Well, being Jewish, I mean, I'm also Jewish.
That's too. Oh.
So when you're gay and then you're also Jewish, like,
how is that working out?
Huh?
How has that worked out? Has that been a good combination, a difficult combination?
I just bring that up only because we're talking about language. And I feel like when I hear someone say, like, I was watching some TikTok video and someone was trying to be positive about, you can be this, you can be black, you can be gay, you can be this, you can be that. And then she said, or you can be a Jewish. And when she said, you can be a Jewish, I had to like play this game in my head. And I think this is what I mean about changing language. I had to play this game in my brain where I was like, all right, that spoken by the wrong person could sound really offensive if someone said, oh, Eric, you're a Jewish. That it's this weird thing of like, you know, or when someone says something with a connotation where I'm so used to it in the gay world.
Right.
Things where someone's talking about somebody who's gay or being effeminate or like all that stuff, I'm almost like too used to it.
Yeah.
So when someone said something odd about being Jewish, I'm like, what? Like Jewish? Like, or oh, you're a Jew. Or like when someone, I mean, I've had people say, you know, Jewed him down. Like, I don't hear that so much that like when I do hear it, I'm like, wow. My brain stops for a minute. And I have to look at the person and I have to start playing this game of like, all right, how did you mean to do that?
Right.
Are you trying to be offensive? Is this an accident? Is this how you were raised?
Right.
And I mean, that's where I think our country is right now. Is like, you know, Black people have to probably do that more than anybody right now. It's going like, well, I know your intent. You're trying to be supportive. I'm trying to take it, but you're systemically like cultured to have this, you know, this viewpoint, and all this undoing that's really positive right now is all seen as like, I think we're hitting a point with that and with COVID where people are like, all right, I've had enough. Right. I've had enough, like, you know, worrying about my safety, like you were showing people in P-Town, or not P-Town, in Fire Island.
Fire Island, right.
enough of my safety. I have to get out of the house. Or people who are like, I've had enough of Black Lives Matter. Like, you know,
Right.
like people are somehow timing out of things.
Well, it's interesting because
so
you're Jewish and in Oklahoma. Ari, you're Jewish and you're in New York. Now, do you have the same experience or is it a completely different experience because it's New York?
I feel, listen, you know, I don't have to worry about getting arrested when I'm walking the street doing nothing, you know, or if I actually knew how to drive a car and I was driving one. So, you know, we need to address the systemic racism right now at the forefront. But make no mistake, anti-Semitism is alive and well, and I have experienced anti-Semitism in New York City all the time. You know, all the time. Maybe, I mean, I don't know if all the time. Not always daily, you know, but many people, yeah, they don't realize what they're saying.
Do you notice that more than homophobia?
It's different.
Yeah, well, I'm sure it is.
Well, I mean, Ari, like they're like, I feel like people who are talking to you about being gay and people who are talking to you about being Jewish sometimes aren't even the same people. You know what I mean? There's like, they all have their same, I guess they have the same kind of hatred, but like it's displayed in two completely different ways.
Yeah, there's just a lot of ignorance, and I mean, as Jewish people, you know, we're not really fighting for rights. You know, as LGBTQ people, we're still fighting for rights, and certainly, you know, people of color are fighting for rights and fighting to, you know, to not be treated, to not be dehumanized.
Sure.
But yeah, there's, you know, isms are everywhere.
I think there's a myth
people
that
are angrier. In my life personally, I felt like people are angrier about being Jewish than being gay, because being gay seems like a personal choice. What did you say, Ari?
No, I'm trying to understand what you're saying.
I'm saying, like, sometimes I feel like people are vehemently more opposed to Jewish people at times, in my personal experience, than they are gay, because I feel like the people that I've dealt with in this way that are against gay people seem to think of gay as like, oh, that's your personal choice. Like, it's wrong.
versus
I don't
being
agree with
born
it.
into a religion.
Jewish is like, oh, you come from a lot of baggage. Like, the gay baggage doesn't seem to be as big sometimes as the Jewish baggage. Like, and I've had, like, I was in 8th grade, and I remember my dad was in the military. I just got to Fort Walton Beach, Florida, and they stuck all our desks next to each other, like 4 desks, like kind of like this, like all together. And, you know, a lot of kids in 8th grade are like, oh, what are you, you know, what's your religion? Who are you? What are you? And you just spout off what your parents tell you. And I'm like, oh, I'm Jewish. And this kid goes, oh my God, like, so what about Jesus? You know, don't you believe Jesus is our Lord and Savior? And I said, I don't even know what I was saying, but like, I knew what we were. I said, oh no, we don't believe that. And this kid pulled his desk away so fast from my desk, like it was contagious, that was the first time I realized being Jewish was like, there was something different. I mean, I think I didn't get that from TV the way that I got that from being gay. Like, I got very clear messages from pop culture, way more as like gay is bad than Jew is bad.
That's because Jews run Hollywood. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, that's true. You know, I think there is a myth that in big cities, these things don't happen as much because it's either a melting pot or people are smarter versus in a small city.
Yeah, I guess what we're talking about is intersectionality, and there's, we have to keep figuring out how to talk about identity and oppression and discrimination from an intersectional standpoint,
And acceptance of any differences, because who cares? I know it's so easy
yeah.
to say because we're all in a somewhat privileged situation that we're performers, and I think in the performing world you're the target of things, but there's also a lot more acceptance.
Well, you
We're
put yourself
visually white too,
Oh, what
right.
was that,
I'm
Eric?
saying we all look white,
Well, there is that too.
Yeah, you put yourself out there when you're a performer. You become part of public, so you put yourself out there for all that. I mean, for the as far as the Jewish thing, I grew up pretty religious, and I went to all Jewish schools, so I learned. That's all we learned was how oppressed Jews were. So that was sort of hounded into us, an awareness of the Holocaust and what the Jews went through. I think sometimes it actually presents itself as a problem because I think some sects of the Jewish community become a little too obsessed about their own oppression, and they need to be a little bit more aware of what's going on with other communities that are being oppressed, like the Holocaust right now.
Yeah, you would think there would be an identification with those other groups.
And for me, there was, but and there's, and actually, Jews have a long history of activism for civil rights, but I mean, the world is a crazy place right now. There's such divisiveness, thanks to the wonderful person that's leading our country.
Well, we'll get off the politics for a second. We got some questions, and I know we've got to wrap up. First, Rocky wants to know, Eric, is that a bass behind you in the corner?
Yes.
Okay.
That is a bass.
Okay, Rocky.
I've been all the instruments. I have like a drum set right here. I've had to, we're in quarantine, so I can't go to a studio. So I just decided to start, like that song I put out. A lot of it was recorded right here in my house.
Let me ask each of you, Eric, name the instruments that you play, because you're very prolific.
I play prolific. I don't feel prolific, but I play music guitar, electric guitar, a little bit of drums, bass. I have a piano in front of me, so I play piano. It's about it.
Ari, what about you?
I'm incredibly jealous. I wish I played another instrument other than the voice. I've written songs on piano, but it's really lyrics and melodies, and that's all I can do. That's why.
I mean, songwriting is people can play all the instruments, but songwriting is a muscle, just like all of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Question for all of you. Well, not me, I hope. Which of your songs are you most proud of, and why? So, Ari, what about you?
Well, my song "Where the Music Takes You" got a great accolade and was the grand prize winner in all genres for the USA Songwriting Competition. So.
Oh, wow.
I'm proud of that, as I am of the acknowledgement, recognition it got. God, there's so many. They're all my little babies, and
Right, it's probably hard to have a favorite, like children. Although I think all parents have a favorite.
Yeah, and there's certain favorites that I like to perform, and of course, I have a song called "Bashert," which is a Yiddish word that means meant to be, and I performed that at. Well, before we had marriage equality, I would perform it at ceremonies, and then I performed it at some once marriage equality came about, I was asked to perform it at some weddings and stuff. So
You've also done it at gay prides. I saw a video from St. Petersburg.
yeah, I just put that up recently.
Oh, see, just as a little pop quiz, I really was watching videos last night. You were shirtless sitting on the edge of the stage. I remember that too. Eric, what about you? A song that you're most proud of and why?
I feel like you're, like Ari's saying, you have different songs and you're proud of them for different reasons. Right. I mean, I wrote a protest song when I felt like gay rights, you know, there's parts of it that talk about gays in the military, which is different now. Hopefully it doesn't go back. I mean, it means more now probably for trans military service people than it does, you know, for gay or lesbian. But I wrote a song about that was pretty popular, and I would go and have that rush of feeling like I was heard, and whenever I played it. And then I had a song called Say the Afternoon that did well on Sirius XM, and I felt like I was proud of that because I felt like I wrote a traditional pop song that I felt like, all right, I did it. Like the model is there, I somehow touched it, and it did well. But I wrote a song called Gracefully that's on this arm. My grandma Grace was like the light of my life. You know, she was my grandma, and I wrote a song just after she passed away, just how much I missed her. And I felt like that was a moment where it wasn't I sat down to write, like it wrote. Like I sat down on the piano and I recorded it and it came out, and I'm not that kind of writer. And I hear stories about people who are that good. I'm not that good. I have to construct. But that was one of the only times where emotions like fell out and the words, and I didn't touch it, which is something Ari knows, like it's so hard not to do when you write something and it comes out in a way that you're like, oh, I can easily start moving syllables around and words. But for that one, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to touch it. I'm going to keep it as is.
There's a few songs of mine that also that just went like through me, which even though you know, we can take it, a lot of the other songs you'll tweak and tweak and tweak and tweak and tweak. But I still believe that if the songs come through you from some other like source. So.
Oh, absolutely. So
you're lucky when it just like phew, like it's like you can't write it down faster, you know, as it just sort of came out.
What is your writing process, both of you? Do you sing it into like a recorder? Do you sit down and write it manually? Ari, what about you?
Well, for many years, it was the old sing it into my answering machine. I'm that old. Now you can, you know, sing it into your iPhone or whatever it comes to you. And sometimes it's while you're in the studio and you're building it in the studio, you know, and it's just coming to you. Or so I always say there's not a single song I've written that has emerged in the exact same way. Like it's just always kind of a little different. And
what about you, Eric?
For me, it all stems from, I think what Ari said, something comes through you or some inspiration. And then the more you do it, the better you get at identifying the good and bad. We're like, oh, this is super catchy. Oh, this is awesome because I had a ton of coffee today and I feel like everything is inspiring. And it really isn't. It's a piece of garbage. And you like, to that point where you really learn, and that's just from doing the experience of going, okay, there's something to this. And the more I do it, there's always some chorus line or there's like some melody. For me, usually there has to be a melody of some sort that I feel like, all right, this is something. And then I build upon that. But if I don't get that moment, a song doesn't really happen. Can't just be like, hey, write a song about apples. And I'm like, apple. Something has to like touch me in some way or come up with some like, or something to make me feel like, oh, there's something to this.
Okay. Well, before we go, I just want to mention both of your websites. Ari is at arigold.com, correct? Is that correct? Did I type it correct? Oh, thank God. All right. I'm sitting here while you're talking. I'm like, all right, I don't want to screw this up, but I want to get it out there because, again, there's a lot of material online, and I think people should be finding your music while they can. And Eric, I know you. Excuse me?
At Sir Ari Gold is where my social media is. It's on the website you just posted, but all my social media is at Sir Ari Gold.
Okay. And then Eric, I know your Facebook page, right? Which is Eric Himan Music.
That's a pretty good spot. Or, you know, I have erichiman.com, or I have my stuff is at Trial and Eric.
Oh, see, I didn't find erichiman.com. I never went to it because you and I had been I've been watching your videos on Facebook. There's some things on YouTube from you, but there's a lot of older things that I had never seen before. I mean, I think both of you, there's a lot of live material, there's a lot of videos, so people should really check them out.
Yeah, it's like erichiman.com-a-Jewish.
Yeah, by the way, somebody did write, we had a comment here which said, a Jewish is like the gay. So I think that's probably true. And I don't mind being the gay. It's fine. It means I'm the only one, and that's okay. I just want to thank both of you. I mean, this has been so much fun, and what a perfect pairing. It couldn't have.
Thank you, Amy. I haven't seen Ari in forever.
I know, it's so good to see you. It's so nice to see you.
I think that's the other thing about this, as Eric and I were talking about, that the audience is the last component in terms of the performance. I think it's also reconnecting with other artists. And if we can't do it in person, at least we can do it online.
I feel like one of my favorite moments was Ari performing at Barracuda, and I showed up and you were playing, there was a guy playing guitar and you were singing Freedom by George Michael.
I've covered that.
I'll never forget that.
I've covered that a lot.
Like,
but I think that was in the 90s.
Well, we were all at Barracuda.
Could be like 99.
Yeah.
But yeah. We've been doing this a while. Just a little bit, yeah. Well, thanks for having me on, Billy.
Hi, thank you both for being on. And again, everybody, please check them out. Thank you, Eric Himan and Ari Gold. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Oh, look, I just swapped you. Look at that. I didn't know I could do that.
I'm over here now. Wait, I'm over here now.
All right, see, I could have done this through the whole interview. You all would have just been sitting around saying, where am I now? All right, thank you, guys.
Actually, Eric.
What?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my God! Look at you.
I'm Ari.
Yes. All right. See, now if you were Ari, you take something off. Okay. Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Bye. And thank you, everyone, for watching Billy Masters Live. We will be back on Thursday with oh my God! Somebody's calling me. They're probably thinking I've got to be off the show by now. We will be back Thursday with Shishi LaRue and Bruce Valanche, and God knows who else will be here, so you won't want to miss that. And that's about it. Thank you for tuning in, and just remember, if we're here, we're live. Bye-bye.